Hey, what up, boxing fans? This is the Rope a Dope Radio Podcast. I am your host, Chris Carlson. We're live, per usual, on a Wednesday, 6:30 on the West, not 6 o'clock. Got a little delayed, 9:30 on the East, and 2:30 now in the UK. Big shots out to the UK as always. Well, we got a whole lot of recap from a busy fight weekend. Obviously, Mayweather and McGregor was the event that had this this crazy following, from all walks, really. I mean, from my nephews asking me a couple months ago, the first time I saw him in a little bit, or the first time I see him when I was up north, bam, they asked me so many different conversations of every walk of life, every age category, everything. Just this overhearing it at a bar I work at, or just in a public place, listening to people's opinions. It was crazy, man. It was crazy, but kind of crazy good now that it turned out that it was entertaining, right? So many times, some of these huge pay-per-views don't live up to it. You know what I mean? So that was nice. I definitely have to say that. That was really nice. That it actually lived up to it. We got a knockout. We got a variety of stuff to talk about from not just that fight, but the whole card. If you add them up, what was it, 2 or 3 fights? I think it was 3 fights on FS1 on Friday. 3 fights, I believe. I'm pretty sure it wasn't just a doubleheader. I want to say there was one more in there. But anyway, then you had 2 fights on the Fox prelims. Then you had 4 fights on the undercard of the paper, just the pay-per-view in general. And you had 2 fights on HBO as well. So just a full week. And you're talking 10, 11 televised fights. And most of them had some meaning. Some meaning. No matter how, shallow or whatever they were, they had some meaning. So we're definitely going to start with just a grip of recap. We're going to go over pretty much a good chunk of all the fights, I'd have to say. Some of them will breeze through. Some of them will talk a little bit more in detail. Of course, we'll look ahead as far as some fights that have been announced. Actually, Showtime announced a great triple header. 2 out of the 3 fights I'm really looking forward to, and also Arislani Lara is fighting on the card too against Goucher, a prospect guy trying to become a contender. But it does sound like Andrade. Would be next. We'll see. I don't know. Pretty sure he's going to have to do that fight to keep his belt. But anyway, and I'm talking about Arislani Lara, of course. We do have, other news. Top Rank made that deal official with ESPN. There's a little bit more details. We now know the years behind it. It's got some years with it too. It's not just a one and done or anything like that. So that's good news. And we'll go over a variety of other things, surrounding the fight, not just inside the ring, but outside the ring. We've heard, crazy, huge pay-per-view buys. I'm not going to sit here and release some official number like as if, this is the number because Dana White said it. He said a pretty high number. He may mean worldwide, because I know it broke every worldwide pay-per-view as well. Sounds like it broke the record here, but who knows? And just other info surrounding the event. There's all sorts of lawsuits when it comes to the live streams, like the legal streams and the illegal. They caught a bunch of people, but the estimation is 3 million homes or something illegal streamed it. There was all, when you have a big event like this, you're going to have a fallout. It's pretty crazy. Monday morning, there's already lawsuits. You know what I mean? It's pretty crazy. So both the UFC and Showtime had some issues with their live stream. it was glitchy, I guess, and it kept buffering. I don't know. But we'll get into just all the details when it comes to that. And like I said, some other fight news and all that good stuff. Obviously, this next weekend, very light weekend, being that it is Labor Day weekend. So we'll be jumping right back into it in September, though. Back-to-back great weekends and really a full slate of fights for September. Golovkin and Canelo, and obviously that triple header with all those super flyweights. They call it the super fly. It's a triple header there. That should be a really good card. So looking forward to September. Got a couple of days with the family up north on the lake. So that was nice. Kind of unwinding for the next couple of days before the fall and college football and football starts in general, NFL as well. Schedule gets a lot busier. So it's been nice just trying to get this last little bit of summer. I got lucky with the weather. It's been really a rainy up and down August here in Minnesota. And got lucky the last couple of days. It's really, really nice. Anyway, enough about me. Let's talk about you. I want you to call in and tell me all the problems that you're having. 646-381-4990. I'm here. Cry on my shoulder. Just kidding. Well, unless you're a Conor McGregor fan. I mean, it's not that I'm not a Conor McGregor fan, but, a fanboy. They probably need some shoulders to cry on. By the way, something I like to do after big events, whether it's a huge national championship football game or some crazy ending to a basketball game, the fan reaction on YouTube is just a great thing. It really is. It's phenomenal. And like I said, I do it for a variety of sports. At the end of it, I just, you just put in a search on YouTube and do yourself a favor and watch the Mayweather-McGregor fan reaction stuff. Some people will have like a big party going on and they go through waves so you can see the start, the middle, and the finish. Some it's that last minute of the round or the last minute of the fight. So it's a wide variety of people. It's really cool. You got people screaming for Mayweather, screaming for McGregor, in shock as McGregor's, starting to get his ass kicked, that type of thing. So if you've never done that, and I don't mean just boxing, I mean everything. Couple years back with that kick six when Auburn beat Alabama at the end of the game on that return. That was phenomenal fan reaction. So just a heads up, not just for this fight, but in general, when you're done with an event, and actually the Game of Thrones, the Red Wedding, that was an awesome fan reaction on YouTube as well. So keep an eye out for that stuff, man. It pays off. It's pretty damn funny. So anyway, I'm also live streaming the first part like I try to do on YouTube weekly. So I appreciate those who, listen to the show there or whether you're listening to it live. Most people listen to it on an archive. In general, I'd say a lot of, that's where a lot of my listeners are, obviously. So I'm going to, just my part, I'm going to live stream, and then you can call 646-381-4990 and join in. And, maybe you're stuck in traffic on the West Coast. Maybe you got some errands to run. You got to drop off the kids or pick the kids up probably at this time from football practice or tennis practice or, whatever it is, soccer. Take me with you, 646-381-4990. Get your grocery shopping done and be entertained. Go to the gym, get a workout, listen to the podcast. Anyway, we are available on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, rate and review. That'd be great. Player FM, Stitcher, TuneIn, SoundCloud, and of course, blogtalkradio.com/Rope-A-Dope Radio, which is the home base. That's where it's available live beyond the, on your phone. So anyway, let's get into the nitty gritty, shall we? When you break down this fight, there's a couple of factors. There's factors when you were going into the fight, and obviously there's some things we're going to talk about now that we've seen these two in the ring. So I did feel, first of all, the fight was entertaining. right? Let's talk about the fight before we talk about the wide variety of opinions. That's the thing about doing your show midweek. You get a chance to really take it in again or whatever, but also listen to a wide variety on podcasts, whether it's articles or YouTube channels. You get to listen to a wide variety, and sometimes that's helpful, and you go, oh, I never saw it that way when you're watching the fight again, or someone makes a point that you thought that was legit, but you, like I said, you watch it again, you're like, oh yeah, they were right. Or some people, especially when it's right after the fight or that Sunday after the fight, there's so many shows and YouTube channels that do stuff on Sunday. Sometimes it's so quickly after the fight, your opinion can change, like I said, when you watch it again. So I'm going to break down the fight first and then kind of give a little bit more detail as far as round by round. The first two rounds, I think you definitely got to give to Conor pretty much hands down. And I mean, Floyd didn't land punches early. He really didn't. I mean, the first round, he barely threw anything. I remember more Floyd missing right hands than anything, right? And within seconds, literally seconds, Floyd was on a rope. And he didn't get forced there per se. I'm not saying he just went to the rope and said, come to me, but he kind of did. He was all of a sudden in the corner before you knew it, and you're like, whoa, okay, well, this started out pretty good because you already got, if you're tuning in to see McGregor beat Floyd, you had to have been happy early on. And some people were shocked as well early on because McGregor was able to do something. For me, most of this fight turned out pretty much how I thought, to be honest with you. I was in the minority about early success that Conor could have. But after that, Floyd did take care of business. Now, the third round, that's one where you could still give to Conor. But if you saw a couple of the lands were just better, cleaner by Floyd. So it's one of those, well, Conor had a good jab early in the fight. He obviously landed an uppercut and a really good jab. Didn't really land that many good left hands, clean left hands. But that one uppercut, obviously, was that in the first round or second round? I can't remember, but it was huge. It did kind of land on his neck, not necessarily dead on the chin, but still, So third round, I could still give to McGregor, but when you watch it again, you go, I wonder who landed, the better shots, not just getting, not just quantity, Now, once you got into the fourth, the fifth, the sixth, then Floyd started slowly but surely taking over. The body shots and the straight right hand started to come out. I gave him the fourth and the fifth. Like I said, getting to the body. McGregor obviously started fouling pretty rapidly, I guess you could say, whether it was a hammer fist or walking behind him and hitting him in the back of the head. It's one thing to walk around a guy and get an awkward angle and hit him. But it's another thing to go around the guy, tie up the guy from the back, and throw punches. Obviously, a lot of people have I shouldn't say a lot, but some people had a problem with the stoppage. Okay, fine. If you thought he could really hang in there for if you look at the first minute, he had 2 minutes left, right? But we'll get into that. But one thing you can't deny is the ref was clearly, even though when he was given the instructions at the beginning before you touch gloves, right, he was just staring at Conor the whole time. The ref was. That was kind of funny. But obviously the ref allowed a lot of fouls, clearly. So anyone wants to say, oh, this fight was fixed, the ref was in on it. Okay, well, he was in on it with the whole thing then. It wasn't just the Floyd side, because if other boxers would have fouled as many times, whether it's minor or majorly, as Conor McGregor, they would have already gotten a point deducted. I mean, clearly, right? Clearly. In the sixth, the fifth, and then especially the sixth and the seventh, Floyd really started stepping up the pace then, landing several right hands, getting to the body, just lunging forward with those right hands, right? Just being sloppy, not caring about it. The guy barely even threw jabs, really, to set up his punches. He truly was just trying to let him do his thing early and then just get off and try to knock him out. And Floyd definitely lived up to his word on this one. That's for sure. Sometimes you believe certain things that's coming out of a camp. Sometimes you go, we'll see fight night. This camp, even pre and post, I believe he was telling the truth a lot of the stuff that he said, including some details about camp that we'll talk about. Now, Conor was busier in the eighth, so some people gave him that eighth. I still gave it to Floyd because he landed the better shots, bigger shots. Then the ninth, the right hands galore hurt Conor, buzzed him, hurt. And then about 20 shots landed in a minute, the first minute. And there was a couple, I think 3 or 4, arm punches that Conor landed real early in that last round. But Floyd just took over, and it was stopped. It was stopped. And I'm just going to talk about the stoppage right now. I don't have a problem with it. When people say he was just gassed, well, hold on now. It's not like he was throwing 80, 90, 100 punches in those first 4 rounds. In fact, when he had him on the rope, he didn't do that much. He didn't do that much damage. When they're in the middle of the ring and Floyd was just kind of throwing a bunch of lead shots and being sloppy and not even caring about it and just using his high guard, that's where Conor was good. And you could tell that uppercut, that counter uppercut, some of the counter shots in that jab, that's Conor's game when you're in the middle of the ring or when he's just on the outside of the pocket waiting to counter, letting the guy come to him. That's when he's at his best. And you notice that's when he landed his best shots for the most part, really, But he was fading. But the people that say he just got tired, that's it. I got a couple of things for you. First, he didn't throw that many punches to get crazy tired ever in a round, right? And he also looked good in the 8th round. So if he was so gassed, he was gassed, but he was also hurt. And why did he wear down? It wasn't because he was just gassed, because like I said, how did he find his win in the 8th round? Then he got a second win and then couldn't get a third win. Which was it? So we've seen Conor gas before, and we've seen him be on the move. It just, Diaz couldn't catch up to him. And the whole kicking the legs in that fight helped. It wasn't the fists later in that fight was the reason why, the angles and all the big punches. It was actually McGregor kicking him in the leg. That's what won that fight for him. But we figured Conor would gas. I think that's pretty obvious if you looked at his fights. And the fact that when you just punch, it's a different ball game for all these rounds, So if you're going to gas in an MMA fight where you're actually not tied up that much the way his style is, and why I bring that up is because he probably has more tie-ups in this fight than he has in a lot of his other fights, if you think about it. And he was the one administering those tie-ups. Floyd literally just high guard him and didn't give 2 shits about him. He really didn't. He didn't care. A lot of people say, well, he was forced into going forward. How was that? How was he forced to go forward? He was going forward pretty much beyond him getting, going to the rope, basically. Floyd just kind of went over near that area, got cornered, but he didn't do a ton of work at that moment. It was really when it was in the middle of the ring, like I mentioned. So I don't know. I think that if you have a sharper eye, the hardcore fans, they know that those body shots started adding up. He was landing to the body, then he'd hurt him to the head a little bit, get back to the body. And when you tie up that much, you get tired. And Floyd finally started, as the rounds went on, started catching up to how McGregor was trying to do little tricks to the trade. Whether it's tying up and giving him that sharp elbow, whether it's just beating to the tie-up where you actually did a move and you got him a little off-balanced, or just kind of neutralizing it. Some people were saying, and they got in a big argument on air saying that Floyd just kept turning his back. But when you see a guy go behind your back, and he's actually, a lot of the times, he's not just behind your back throwing punches, he's holding you and throwing punches too. So the whole, you can't bend over and guard yourself. Well, why do you think Floyd was doing that? He actually started trying to beat him to the spot. Like, all right, you're going to go behind me, then I'm going to go in my shell and protect myself because it's not getting called. There's no points getting deducted. And why not? You know, I rewound most of those while I was watching it again just to see. And most of the time it was McGregor not stepping to the side or using a crazy angle like you did see once in a while, which was interesting. And we kind of expected some of that. I'm talking about where he literally goes behind him, Adrian Broner style, where, you know, Broner were hump people just messing around. And he, you know, obviously, whether it's a hammer fist or just hitting him, you know, rabbit punches, whatever it is. So as far as McGregor, I feel like I'm going to just address certain things that I feel that I saw with Floyd, but also with McGregor. Let's start with McGregor. So I was in the minority, and I mentioned last week that I did think Conor could have some early success. I did. I really did think so, because I just think the awkwardness, he was awkward. Another thing about the fight, we knew he'd be bigger. But I think by far, Conor McGregor was the biggest fighter that Floyd's ever been in the ring with. I mean, the 5'8", 5'9" thing is a joke. You know, it's like a half a forehead. I mean, he was way bigger than him. It had to have been minimum 20 pounds. I'd say 25 maybe, really. Like, there's a couple of times in the first couple of rounds you're like, holy crap, that's a big dude. Canelo's a big dude. Some of these guys were big dudes, but they were actually, some of them were shorter than Floyd or not taller, you know, and didn't have the reach. Obviously, we know McGregor has those long arms like Floyd. These guys aren't tall, but they have super long arms. So I think that McGregor on the way in got underestimated for a couple of reasons. Obviously, a lot of hardcore boxing fans were anti this fight. So they were just like, he's going to toy with them. But I think they just underestimated his stance, his angles, and in that athleticism. You know, in the fact that he did have some boxing experience, not on the pro level, but when your first 6 years of fighting is boxing, that does help you somewhat to have early success in a fight. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying, I never said he was going to win. Nothing like that. I'm not trying to say like I told you so, but I did mention that I did think there'd be some success there. And he had some. He definitely did. Like I said, a lot of people talking about that uppercut. Some of the jabs were good. Now, most of his punches were basically from like the 5th, 6th, 7th round on were a lot of arm punches. Every once in a while in the clean shot, but obviously that was what I really wanted to see. How did the 4-ounce gloves in that stance that's a little different, that karate stance, that's a little bouncy to get your full power in there and actually sit down on your punches. I wanted to see how that would translate. How would McGregor's power translate? Well, it didn't translate that well, obviously, right? It just didn't. Because I don't know. So I really think he got undervalued or obviously overvalued by the fanboys saying he was going to knock out Floyd in 3 minutes or some shit like that. You know what I mean? That was ridiculous. First round, second round, fourth round, he's going to knock him out. And most people said, well, Floyd can't knock him out. So he's just going to dance himself his way, you know, to a victory. And I believe he could do that. I do. I definitely think so. So I think McGregor did good enough, though, definitely, that he could have more boxing matches in the future and have some successful pay-per-views. No doubt about it. I really believe that. But like I said, some people will use these stats like 100 and what was it? 100, I don't remember, 114 or 111 or something like that. The number of punches Conor landed, but beyond about 5 or 6 of them that were real great, a lot of them were just arm punches, you know, and you could say, well, you know, he did better than, you know, Canelo, or, well, maybe he did, but, you know, he did better than this guy. He did better than that guy. And it's like, well, you can't just use the CompuBox because Manny definitely landed way less, right? But you got to remember, Floyd fought way different than he does. Floyd, it was like a flashback of old pretty boy Floyd at junior lightweight and some at 140, but with barely any defense. He literally didn't give a shit. Whereas before, he'd come forward, be more aggressive, but he was worried about his defense more. He was throwing his jab to set up other stuff. That wasn't the case here. He didn't give two shits about what was going on. He was going to knock him out, period. Now, on the Mayweather side, a lot of people, I thought, were a little over the top on how bad Floyd looked. And the reason why I say that, and I spoke to some of the undervaluing that they did with McGregor. A lot of people did with McGregor, right? I think people aren't putting everything in perspective when they break down Floyd's performance. Obviously, the first thing is Floyd clearly didn't give a crap about what was coming at him beyond the high guard, and he was just forcing stuff, right? So you're gonna get hit more. It's funny because Golovkin cannot care about Kell Brook's power and get lifted off the canvas a little bit, but then some of those same people won't say Floyd just ran through and didn't care. And that's why he got hit more. You know, it's kind of funny how that works. Not just that, but this was the longest layoff of his career. We're talking 23 months. That's a long time for a 40-year-old. And I mentioned how I believed a lot of the things he said in this camp. Now that you see it, he did say he's going to come forward. He's not taking a lot of back steps. He's coming to knock him out. He did that exactly. He completely did that. And you could tell by the number of punches, especially in the first 2 rounds. I mean, Floyd never even attempted to outbox, to even go down that game plan. But if you're just going to shoot lead shots, that takes a little bit of sharpness too, just like it would to outbox or time people, right? Well, he was looking for it. I mean, I haven't seen him miss that many right hands. But am I shocked by it? Well, if he was throwing his jab and setting up everything right, then yeah, I'd be a little bit more shocked that he got hit that much and missed that much. But considering he was just rip-roaring right hands for the hell of it, I just don't think Floyd looked as bad as everybody said. Like, dude, and that's with me saying I've never seen him miss this much. But I think you got to add some depth to it. You got to add some content to it. Context, I mean. Content too, whatever. We're doing content right now. I think you got to add that in. He's 40, guys. I mean, he's 40 with 2 years out, dude. He even admitted he's not the same fighter. And I believe this as well, especially with all those right hands. He said that he kind of minorly, the injury that Floyd had He said it wouldn't have stopped the fight, nothing like that. But he said for the last month of camp, he didn't spar much or didn't spar. Well, I kind of believe him now, too, seeing all those right hands. So if that's true, he's going out there headhunting, not setting up anything, going for the knockout 100%, irresponsibly going for the knockout, and then the 2-year layoff, and then maybe possibly not sparring the last couple of weeks or month, that adds up to a lot of misses. So I thought people, and I'm not trying to defend Floyd here, I just think people went way over the top like, oh, Spence would have ate him up. Well, no shit, dude. You think after 2 years, Floyd's going to fight Spence? Like, dude, no shit he'd eat him up. You know what I mean? I hope so. I think so, so Floyd wouldn't take that fight after 2 years off, though. And a lot of people said, well, he fought Marquez after 19 months. Yeah, dude, that was 2009. You realize that was almost 8 years ago? That's a long time ago. Long time ago. And remember, he did get a big chunk of camp in the summer. That summer, that was a September fight, 2009. And remember, he messed up his rib. So he got a little rust off, got a little camp in, and then had the rest, and then got a full camp in. So having that extra chunk of camp can't hurt when you're talking about timing and rust and all that. So I just thought it was a lot of rust. It was age. It wasn't really, I don't know, in style, So I think we just saw that with Manny a little bit too. Now, it wasn't all the way rust stuff per se, but it had, not as long as layoff as Floyd. But, it did seem like maybe he didn't, try as hard, So, all in all, though, it was a good fight. It was an entertaining fight. Both boxing and the UFC pretty much come out of this positively, I believe. You got everybody and their mom on both sides as far as boxers and UFC fighters calling out, Dana White to call him, or, I want to fight this guy, and you're starting to see all this cross promotion. It's pretty funny. But overall, I got to say, I was torn last week. On Saturday. I was torn. And here's why. And CT, I'm going to go to you in just a second here. I was torn. I was really torn. Because if Floyd, a lot of people say 50, it doesn't count. It doesn't count. It's not a real win. Well, if he would have lost that fight, would that have been a real loss then? That's my response to those people. Oh, it shouldn't count. It's a disgraceful win. All right, well, if he would have lost, what would you have said? He probably would have been the first one to say, look, his whole, career was a joke. In a weird way, Floyd had a ton of pressure on him, but on paper, he didn't. It was a real strange thing that you don't really see often. He did actually have a ton of pressure on him from the boxing world and just in general, because if he would have lost that fight, the shame. I mean, could you imagine? I mean, his name gets drugged through the mud, sometimes rightfully so, obviously, right? But other times it's just over the top. Could you imagine if he lost that fight? It would have counted. And guess what? It does count. Too bad. But anyway, I was torn because I wanted boxing to win. I'm not going to sit here and lie. I wanted boxing to win. And I did want him. We've been talking about it for months on the show. He did need to knock him out. He did. He really did. And obviously he knew that because look at how he fought. So, but in the same breath, so the boxing fan in me says, dude, boxing's got to win tonight. But also maybe McGregor, if he won, could have just been that special fighter because of his boxing background and obviously the circumstances of fighting an older fighter off a layoff. But it would have been pretty crazy to have a similar guy as far as trash talk and already a built-in fan base and getting a new one out of this as well. So, man, if McGregor, we could just, okay, see a Floyd. Now boxing has a new star, and that's not to say that boxing doesn't have a new star, because we do with McGregor, because I believe he will fight. He did say he's going to do it. He's just going to bounce back and forth. So, overall, though, a really fun fight, and that's why I was talking about earlier in the show, talking about how fun it was to go on YouTube and type in fan reaction Mayweather McGregor. It is fun. It's fun to watch, but especially this fight, because you had so many different walks of life watching this fight. And so that was pretty fun. It lived up to it. Not too many people went away. I didn't hear too much complaints that actually watched it and just got over the fact of certain things about it being a fraud in a sense, or like, wow, I don't know. There was the I don't know. And that's why I didn't know for sure, and we don't know for a fact, but sounds like they broke the pay-per-view record. Like I mentioned, Dana White put out like 6.5 or something like that, 6.7. I don't remember. It was over 6 million, he said, but we don't know if that's worldwide or not. And you can't really listen to Dana anyway, because he's known to boost up. But he could be completely right. Who knows? But, man, I'm just glad that it lived up to something. And it gave the entertainment. And even though McGregor was doing some just cheap shit, it was hilarious. It really was. It was still funny, even though you're like, dude, what the hell? When is the ref gonna do something to that? That stuff. But in the same breath, that's what also made it like, what the hell is going on? It made it, that was part of the spectacle, and that's part of the stuff that you wanted to know, just how dirty McGregor was going to get without throwing an elbow and without kicking him. Because obviously there's plenty of ways, hammer fist, plenty of ways to be dirty in boxing with the MMA feel to it. Now, I mentioned earlier about the lawsuits. There was a class action lawsuit over failed streams. Fans paid $99 for a stream, and they said it was pretty crappy. So they're going to go and make sure, go back and for refunds wise. The UFC also had some issues. They say this, what was it? It was from Amazon to eBay to all sorts of different, Twitter, YouTube, of course, Facebook, 239 different streams, different platforms, I guess. But a lot of them were on apps, which that's kind of interesting too. A lot of pirating obviously going on. They say up to like 3 million homes. I did see an estimation of 100 million, but I don't know. It's really tough to judge that part. It's really tough, I believe, to get it all the way down. But there were mostly satisfied customers. Now, there was some issues, I believe, in Florida and some other state that they were having issues because, the platforms were just like, dude, we can't handle this traffic. And that's why it got delayed. So from what I understand, most of the cable companies that were having issues ended up getting it solved, and that's why it went on so late. So I mean, this fight is just crazy. Supposedly, I don't know if it's 70 or 80 million. I've heard 80 million. I've heard 70 something million for the gate, which would be a record, or damn near. It's crazy, dude. This is a crazy event. And like I said, I'm glad that people went home happy, went home satisfied for the most part. Now, I know there was a lot of McGregor stuff as far as the knockout, and I never did actually go that deep into it, but the ninth round, he was he damn near got stopped in the 9th round. It was really close. Really close to getting stopped, I thought. And to not answer back after all those shots, like I said, 20 shots in the first minute of the round. You had 2 minutes. And when it gets to the point where every punch is doing something to your body too, when you're trying to move, but you're, like he said, well, when I get tired, I get wobbly. That's bullshit. Being tired doesn't make you wobbly. It slows you down, but he didn't just slow down because he was throwing punches. It was the punishment he was taking. I think for the most part, to be honest with you. Some of those quick arm punch combos, though, and all the tie-up definitely attributed to him wearing down too. But literally the whole last part of the fight, the last minute, every shot moved his body. And his neck went from whiplash to the whole body going backwards. And then when you get hit and you stumble across the ring and you get hit again, your body's turning almost sideways. You get hit again, your body's turning into the rope sideways. The ref got in there just in time because there was about to be another left hand and probably another right hand that was going to land. And McGregor was just fresh off straightening his body, hands down, just coming off the rope. Could have just got a clean shot to the temple. And then he's unconscious. So I think it's a joke to say that was a horrible stoppage. Now, if you thought, some people just say, that I want to see the guy down. But do you want to see him? A lot of people just want to see that vicious knockout. But then when he's out for like a minute, then you're like, oh, shit, Then all of a sudden there's brain bleeding. And, UFC kind of goes back and forth. But in the last handful of years, they've stopped fights a lot earlier than they used to. I'll say that. And I'm talking about on average, obviously. But to me, it was a great stoppage. Like I said, every punch, the last 12 to 14 punches, was just moving him all the way through his body. You could see it. So I will get into some other fights, the undercard, the Fox card, the FS1. And by the way, real quick on some more stats, I guess you could say, it's kind of weird that nobody's talking about this on the boxing side. But the prelims on Fox did extremely well. It averaged 2.4, over 2.4, the whole card. It's like 2.5, almost 2.6 if you include streams like ESPN did. I guess we're going to start including streams into this stuff now too. But yeah, the whole card for those 2 hours, it averaged 2.4. And if you look at the adult demo, 18 to 49, it did huge. It did really well there. I think it peaked at 3.1, and that's pretty damn good considering you didn't have a Sean Porter, which is a little bit more of a name that people could go, oh, wait, I saw him against Thurman, or oh, wait, I saw him against Broner when those those fights peaked at, well over 3 and almost 4 million. So that helped a lot. And then the as far as those FS1, even the pre-show did 1.4 on Fox, which is a lot if you look at late afternoon. The Friday night FS1 did a pretty solid number for FS1 anyway. So that was big. That's always good. Definitely. I mean, I don't think the UFC, I can't remember their last, it was a while back that they did a number that peaked at that. I can't remember what it was, but they do a lot of prelims, and I like that idea if it's worthy. Now, you tend to see a little bit more recognizable people if you know the UFC on the prelims, whereas these these 4 fighters weren't really known that well. Now, people seen Delorme. He got that big spot on HBO a couple years back. It did good against Crawford, and Ugas has been really busy, It's just been on the more mid-level prospect stuff. He's been making a nice run. That was a great fight, by the way, Ugas and Delorme. I really liked that fight. That was a really good fight. What else did I want to get to real quick before I get to CT? And not long, I'm going to actually shut down the YouTube stream. 646-381-4990 is the number to call if you want to join in, or if you, want to hit that link. Whether you're listening to it live right now, you can keep listening to it live by that link, via link, or that'll be the archive link as well. Couple other items I wanted to get to. The Top Rank ESPN deal is a 4-year deal. And we talked about how the streaming was going to be involved. ESPN owned like a third of this streaming service that they've been using. Well, they bought, I think, the majority stake in it now. So Top Rank fights will be on that stream, whether it's the prelims, right, the undercard, or you never know. Maybe there'll be some prospect and mid-level stuff there as well on that streaming service. And they obviously, this is part of ESPN Deportes too, which does pretty decent numbers. It adds to the total. You know what I mean? So 4 years. And it's a great thing for boxing. Potentially, it could be a phenomenal thing. It really kind of matters how these matches go. I'm not going to get into detail about what they've done so far and what they have on the calendar. Obviously, Lomachenko, Regan Diao is very interesting. It definitely shuts some people up on the hater side of Lomachenko that hate him for not just judge him fairly and be critical of him fairly, potentially, but, just straight up haters. I think it shuts up a little bit of them anyway, or at least you can point to, hey, this is a pretty good fight too. So we'll see how they do with this deal, but it's just great that it's on ESPN. And you've seen some shows have always talked a little bit more boxing, obviously First Take with that, Max Kellerman and Stephen A. Smith, and obviously Teddy Atlas and Stephen A. Smith. I mean, this is getting bad. When you see them, it's one thing to argue after the fight or argue about stuff, but it just, and I know that's where sports for a while now, in news, right? That's where it's all gone. The big catchy argument or the, I'm going to go this way when people go that way, and playing to that crowd, the Skip Bayless thing where he just says some shit where you're like, what? Come on, dude. You want to be outspoken. And I get some of that. I totally get that. But, I mean, welcome to YouTube, right? And a lot of these podcasts. But, come on. Like, some of the stuff they were saying was good detail. Other, you're just like, dude, stop, man. It just not, it doesn't add up. You know what I mean? So, but I am happy for it. Now we're going to see who they're going to match up these guys with when I'm talking about the top ranked fighters, because obviously that's been the biggest thing for HBO. They may have, well, they don't have as many talented guys as they used to, but flashback not long ago, and you could say they had a good chunk of the top 10 pound for pound list, right? But they didn't have the opponents to fight those guys. And if you think about it, for the most part, Al Heyman has access to a lot of outside top-ranked people. And you can't even say that about Golden Boy because they've done some business with Golden Boy too. Now, I think Top Rank would probably have an easier chance to do that type of fight. And if they had their choice or whatever, and sometimes that comes down to opponent, obviously, and how hard it's going to be for your fighter. Jorge Lara just made a fight with Jojo Diaz. But the problem for Top Rank is, potentially anyway, is what HBO was kind of struggling with too, where Al has access to most of the opponents you have, but he also has his own opponents for his own guys. And a lot of times they're the same guys. So he can make way more house fights to keep it, under the roof. But also he has, for the most part anyway, I'm not saying every available opponent, but he has access to a lot of what Bob can get to. So we're going to see. And like I've said a couple of times with this deal, if you have $1 million to give to Indongo, $1 million for Indongo, and you have $750,000 for Salido, that was the reported amount. And like I said, well, then you have $1 million or $750 to give to Mikey Garcia against Lomachenko. You have $1 million to give to a Sean Porter, to give to a Thurman. That means you have the money. Enough, right? There's really no financial details. And you know ESPN's not putting up $2 million for the Crawford and Dongo fight. So I think it's kind of like Bob's putting stuff on top of it. That's basically like the last 16 months or whatever, at least the last year, you could see that the Showtime fights, some of them are PBC Showtime, right? Well, to me, that just means Al's putting the money on top of it to make it happen. A lot of people look at the Showtime or the purses for a Showtime fight and be like, man, they really paid a lot. It's not all that. It's not all Showtime with the licensing fee. Sometimes it may be a 1.2, 1.5 licensing fee. And Al just puts some money on top of it. That's likely where a lot of that other money is going to right now. I know a lot of people say, oh, 500 million and 900 million is spent. Show me where it's spent, for one. I know it's out of the fund, but show me where it got spent, for one. And two, that's what I believe is going on here. Maybe I'm wrong, and maybe he won't have $1 million to give to some of these early fights. Maybe that was part of the investment in his side of it, where he's like, all right, I'm going to go out the box, kind of like PBC did when they overpaid some people, and you look at the model and it wasn't going to work, but they just decided to try to get two names in there more than just the quality fight or a combination, whatever. So we don't know the finance. I mentioned that article of Thomas Hauser, how I guess it got delayed, this deal, because an investor that Bob had bailed at the end. Maybe he got something else. Maybe he's just taking it on himself. I mean, there was times where he knew a pay-per-view would fail, and he took the L. So maybe he figured, well, I'm going to invest some money, in this first chunk. And maybe when I say, oh, he has $1 million to do this, well, maybe we won't see that on that opponent's side ever again, or for a while, until they can work their way up. I don't know. I really don't know, but we'll see. It's a positive thing. It can be a great thing, but just like the PBC and other stuff, what we got to see what the fights are. And I'm not overwhelmed by what they've done so far on paper. That's just being honest. If you look at the couple of the fights coming up, some are interesting. Some are really like, okay, that's a great matchup. Some are like, it's a mandatory. PBC, we get destroyed for it. You know what I mean? So that's nothing new. The Top Rank, they're just not going to get criticized like that. I mean, literally, if Canelo and Golovkin would show some prelims on a channel and it got 2-3 million on the rating, that would already be written. It's Wednesday. I haven't seen one written article about it. Now, I'm not saying that they blew the world away, but it's a positive thing that many people were watching boxing at that time. And they got like a fight and a half, a good fights on that undercard. So that's what I'm talking about. It's positive. That Ugas Delorme was very entertaining. And that peaked at, what did I say, 3 million or 3.1? I don't know. But anyway, one more item to get to, then I'm going to bring on the rest of the crew. What was I? Oh, yeah. Okay, so we talked about this last week, how Showtime's going to have some announcements. Now, obviously, coming up on a Friday, they have a card. 2 Fridays from now, they have a card with Benavidez getting what should be he should be able to win that fight, right? Darrell pulled out. It doesn't seem like it's, as good as the opponent. I think he'd beat Durrell too, obviously, for me anyway. Maybe that's not obvious, but I think he would have anyway. He'll probably fight him next, who knows. But anyway, they announced some stuff here, and the tickets are going on sale tomorrow for this. A triple header on Showtime, August 14th, and it's going to be a busy day. It's going to be a very busy day because Fox has a card that's going to run early as well. So they're not going to, kind of like we got lucky with the Crawford Showtime stuff in May. And some of these other fights we've gotten pretty much lucky too, where they don't go head-to-head all the time. I mean, technically, this last weekend, you were able to watch the Cotto fight and not go head-to-head, technically, because of that delay that they had for the fights. But the tickets start at $50. It's a triple header. All three fights are championship fights. Now, the Arislandi Lara fight is another stay busy fight to get to Andre. But he has to fight Andre to keep his belt next. So I'm not really interested in that. Goucher, hey, he's getting a good opportunity. Good for him. He's a prospect, undefeated guy, whatever. It is what it is, right? But the other two fights are great. Just great. I'm just in love with them. Especially the Jermell Charlo versus Erickson Lubin. Two unbeaten guys. Lubin looks like he's got the goods. Had that highlight reel knockout on the co-feature with Thurman and Garcia. That's a great fight. That's a tough first title fight, too. Some people now are saying, well, Charlo's not ready for this. Here's Heyman mismanaging him, And I get it. He could stand for a fight or two. But, from what I've heard, when they've been trying to sign other fights, that he's got that risk-reward thing. So he's got to go kind of get a belt to be able to make it worth to fight him. You know what I mean? So it is what it is. Maybe it's too early. We're going to find out. Another fight involves Jared Hurd, who's had the last year and a half, he's had a really nice run, got some good airtime, and put up some good fights. He's an entertaining guy. He's taking on Austin Trout. So a triple header on Showtime. That'll start. Tickets go on sale tomorrow at 10 Eastern. They start at $50. I don't know the price points. Otherwise, I'd tell them to you. So that's going to start at, 9 Eastern, I believe? Or maybe 10 Eastern, 9 o'clock. I can't remember. It's a little ways off. We got time. But during the day, we mentioned this, how Abner Mares and Leo Santa Cruz were supposed to fight head up. They talked about money, and that may have been a budget thing. But honestly, now that we've heard it a little bit more, it sounds like, especially Leo, wanted to get a fight before the rematch. Now, the rematch, the WBA were the one who said, we got to make this belt. This is a mandatory. So Abner Mares is a mandatory for Leo Santa Cruz. They both agreed, though, because, it was about to go to purse bid. They both agreed to fight in the first quarter of next year, though. So somewhere January, February, March, somewhere in there, they're fighting. So I don't mind it as much. Gutierrez is a pretty good fighter. That might be interesting with him and Mares. Style-wise, it will be. Style-wise, it'll be good, but it's going to be on Fox. But Leo's going against Chris Avios, who had a really good fight against Flores. I thought he was losing that fight, but it was a good fight. So action-wise, it'll be good, but, Avios is more for he's a good tune-up, but, it's definitely not a great opponent, but I can understand, I'll give Leo a break here. If you look at the last 3 out of his 4 opponents, 2 Framptons and a Mares, and mix in a stay busy fight that was action-packed, and then to go to this one and then fight Mares again. So you fought Frampton twice, you fought Santa Cruz or Mares twice. So 4 out of 6 fights, you're not going to hear me complaining too much. I just wish it wouldn't be that be the main event fight, I guess you could say. Maybe Avios, will show up and give even a better account than I think he will. But I just it's a little bit too much of a mismatch in my mind. But I get why they're tuning up. And you stay busy, tune up. It's probably going to be a better fight for the tune-up. But I wish it was more like a triple header and they gave us 2 out of 3 good fights or something like that. You know what I mean? What else was I going to say? I got, I'll discuss some other stuff. But for right now, let's get to the callers. And I'm going to actually shut down the live YouTube stream. You can either call 646-381-4990 to listen to the show, or you can just hit that link that's right there in the description box. Hit that link. And if you're listening to this in the future on archive, just hit that link and you'll be able to check it out, of course. So, yeah, I'm going to shut that down on the YouTube live stream. Anybody that listened to it, I appreciate it. You guys have a good night. Like I said, follow us over to the live stream on Blog Talk, or you can get us, on the phone as well.